Hi guys, my name is Dr. Bindiya Gandhi. I am a double board certified in family medicine and integrative medicine. And today I am happy to talk to you guys about fertility and stress management. Fertility is a very dear topic to me personally because I struggled with getting pregnant with my first daughter, Soraya. And this was over 3 years ago. So I completely understand where a lot of people are coming from. And so I want to explain to you the functional medicine way that we use fertility to help people get pregnant and what that stress component and link is. So first thing that I wanted to mention is when it comes to fertility, a lot more females experience fertility than they let on. A lot of times people, or females I should say, are embarrassed to talk about it, to get help. There's a sort of stigma associated with fertility. People always think that, when it comes to age, that it's expected. I'm 37, I'm trying to get pregnant, and I should just go straight to fertility treatments. There's a lot of things that we need to discuss with fertility at all ages. I always want people to know it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still have a healthy pregnancy at any age, as long as you are keeping yourself healthy. And we'll talk about some of these things today. So first things that I want to mention when it comes to fertility is fertility is defined as over 1 year of actively trying to conceive and not getting pregnant. And so that is a definition of fertility. Sometimes I'll see people get married, they will try for 3 or 4 months, they get frustrated, and they think that they are dealing with fertility issues at that time. But that's not the definition of fertility. So it's actively trying for over 1 year before trying to get pregnant. So once you've been trying for over a year, I always want to make sure, and you have not gotten pregnant, I always want to make sure that we rule out certain things, and that is structural problems. Making sure the female doesn't have fibroids, endometriosis, her fallopian tubes are open, making sure that her partner has good sperm production. So structural is always where I will start off first, and make sure there's no structural abnormalities before we even get into the nitty-gritty of the functional side. So structural is always the first place you want to start off, and make sure that uterus is there's nothing blocking it, the fallopian tubes are open, no bicornuate uterus or anything like that, because that can hinder getting pregnant. Then we want to look at nutritional deficiencies. So making sure we're optimizing nutritional status, including basic things like vitamin D, B12, magnesium. Those things are always want to make sure we're optimizing nutritional deficiencies. We also, the biggest thing is the hormonal link when it comes to fertility. So a lot of times people have PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. A lot of females are estrogen dominant. That's where they have endometriosis or fibroids. Some females have premature ovarian failure. That means they could be in their 30s and they have high FSH and their body is going into early menopause. A lot of females that struggle with fertility have thyroid issues or hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid, even an autoimmune variation of that is Hashimoto's. That's very common I see in practice. Low progesterone. So these are some of the things that I see commonly with from a hormonal perspective. Other things that I commonly see is adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue is common in a lot of my patients that are trying to get pregnant. So having an imbalance of cortisol production, which will then inhibit ovulation. The other thing I see is autoimmune conditions. Sometimes people are not aware they have autoimmune conditions. Autoimmune conditions can be things like celiac, it can be lupus, it can be rheumatoid arthritis, it can be some sort of variation of an autoimmune condition or a mixed connective tissue disease. So autoimmune issues are also very prevalent. I see a lot of patients with allergies, and that affects your immune system, and that can inhibit fertility as well. So the biggest thing that I see is people have a lot of GI dysfunction or gut issues. I see a lot of people that have dysbiosis or imbalance of good and bad bacteria. Sometimes they've got parasites or yeast. small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So lots of gut dysfunction. In Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, the gut is always the first place you want to start off with, because that's where diseases happen. When you have an imbalance of gut microbiome, and your gut is often, you have something called leaky gut that can affect your hormones, and it can affect other things. People also have a lot of food sensitivities, food allergies that they're unaware of. So making sure that we're optimizing from a GI perspective, that's super important. A lot of times people have metal toxicities, mercury, lead, arsenic, aluminum, things like that I see commonly in practice. So there's a lot of toxins these days. Actually, even from pesticides and from genetic modified foods, we'll see a lot of toxins in the body. So we want to make sure that we're evaluating toxic loads. Genetics is super important when it comes to fertility, because a lot of females have something called the MTHFR gene. And so we want to make sure that we're checking for this gene, because this can be a reason why you're not getting pregnant. This could be a reason why you're having recurrent miscarriages. So we want to make sure, and we want to evaluate for that. The other thing that we do that's a little different traditionally is we look at viral loads and toxins. Are you exposed to viruses? Because viruses weaken your immune system. And so if your immune system is weak, then your body doesn't think you're capable of carrying a child. So we definitely look at different viral loads, Epstein-Barr virus, mycoplasma, now with COVID, so we just look at how different viruses are affecting your immune system. So we want to make sure your immune system is very strong and healthy, so you can conceive and have a healthy pregnancy. So this is basically kind of the evaluation that we do from a functional medicine perspective. So functional medicine, just to clarify, just to remind everyone, is basically getting to the root cause, the underlying root cause of medical problems. Now, integrative medicine is using the dynamic tools that so once we have identified the medical problem or the underlying root cause, we will use integrative medicine, and this is the dynamic tool, so we can kind of put a plan of action together. And so with integrative medicine, we will do a lot of things. So optimizing nutrition is always one of the first places I start. Sometimes we'll incorporate Ayurveda with this, sometimes we won't. Sometimes we're coming up with a specific plan based on food sensitivities. If you've got gut issues, if you've got a lot of autoimmune issues. So, diet is always the first place I'll start when we're trying to help females get pregnant and help with trying conception. I always encourage everybody eat a wide variety of plant-based diet. So getting more vegetables to fruit ratio. So getting about 5 to 7 servings of vegetables a day, always a plus. Obviously staying away from processed foods, eating clean, staying away from chemicals, pesticides, eating organic as much as possible, eating a balanced diet, including about 60 grams of protein, 35 grams of fiber, plant-based fiber a day, and 5 to 7 servings of vegetables to fruit a day. I always say emphasize vegetables to fruit. So a lot of people will eat more fruit, and fruit is great. It has a lot of great antioxidants, a lot of great properties, but too much fruit can actually increase blood sugar imbalances. And that can also be another hormonal problem when it comes to fertility. So want to make sure we're eating well for our diet. This is not the time to diet or try to lose weight when you're trying to conceive. You do want to make sure that you're at a healthy BMI or body mass index prior to getting pregnant. And decreasing any inflammation in the body, right? But always want to make sure you're sticking to a healthy diet. One of my favorite diets is a Mediterranean diet, or the anti-inflammatory diet that Dr. Andrew Weil is noted for. So sticking to a plan like that, making sure you're getting healthy fats in your diet, adequate protein, whole grains, legumes, as long as you don't have any issues with sensitivities. Exercising is also essential during this time, but not over exercising. So a lot of times people will, my avid athletes are having trouble getting pregnant because they over exercise, and that imbalances ovulation. So over-exercise will inhibit ovulation, but moderate exercise like walking, jogging 3 times a week, yoga, bar, that kind of thing will definitely help with fertility. And also, doing the right type of exercise for you. Supplements, I always will incorporate supplements. Of course, if there's nutritional deficiencies specifically, I will incorporate those. But a couple of my favorite go-to supplements for majority of my patients is Shatavari. Shatavari is an Indian Ayurvedic supplement, and it helps rebalance hormones, and it's usually safe for everybody. CoQ10 is another one of my favorite, having obviously a good prenatal vitamin with choline in it, and methylfolate is one I like. Omega-3 fish oil is something I recommend, CoQ10. So just melatonin is something I recommend too. So just a handful of supplements I recommend. Obviously probiotic is another one of my favorites. Vitamin D, sometimes magnesium if magnesium is low. So just a bunch of supplements that can optimize fertility. Of course, if there's something specific we need to work on, we'll add that as well. Making sure you're getting about 7 to 8 hours of adequate sleep a night really helps decrease cortisol production. Fertility can be a very stressful time on couples. It can really make it hard to conceive if you're stressed. And so making sure you're getting good adequate sleep is super important. A lot of things that I like to discuss too is when we talk from mind-body perspective, so obviously bringing your cortisol levels down, making sure your stress levels are down, but trying different types of meditation. Guided meditation is one of my favorites. Bella Ruth Naprasik has great, Health Journeys has great guided imagery meditations. Very beneficial. Also hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy can help relax the mind and help with fertility. Breathing techniques, I always say, again, keeping your cortisol levels low, because struggling to get pregnant can be a very, very stressful time. So all these things really help. One of my favorites is Dr. Andrew Well's 478 breathing technique, helps really, really well. But there's a huge emotional connection to fertility. And so there's also, if you and your husband are fighting all the time, your future baby senses that, and guess what? It's going to be hard for you to get pregnant. The timing has to be right. There are a lot of factors that play into that. If you are stressed out at your job, or if you're constantly in an irritable mood or whatever, your future baby senses that. And so there is an emotional connection, even though maybe you want to get pregnant, maybe you're scared about getting pregnant, maybe you're worried about weight gain or whatever it is. So whatever emotional baggages or emotional things that are holding you back, you've got to come to terms with all of that, because that's going to inhibit mentally from you getting pregnant. Also energy blockages. This is where Reiki can come into place, or getting in touch with a pranic healer, energy medicine, because sometimes there's ancestral blockages that we're unaware of, and that can help with fertility. Talking to a shaman and that kind of thing, releasing a lot of ancestral issues over time that have been collected. And so, I always think that's kind of an important thing to do. Acupuncture helps a lot with fertility. It helps with stress management. Chinese medicine, there's a lot of herbs that also help with fertility as well. So getting in touch with a great Ayurvedic practitioner would be something that I recommend a lot of my patients do. And then I kind of mentioned this before, but balancing your doshas from an Ayurvedic perspective. So these are just some of the things that I recommend when it comes to fertility, and things that we can do to kind of optimize fertility. But there is a very, very big mindset link when it comes to fertility. A lot of my patients are similar to me, and this is why I can relate. Very high strung, very type A personality, and they have difficulty getting pregnant because they wanted to get pregnant yesterday, right? Pregnancy, the biggest thing that you have to learn to do is let go and release it, and not be tied down to the outcome. If you are planning, most type A people are planners. They know when they're ovulating, they're tracking it, they are hypervigilant. They basically, it's a mind game, unfortunately, and it's learning how to release, how to understand that everything is not in your control, giving it to the divine and the universe. And that can be very hard for a lot of people. So whether you're trying to conceive naturally or whether you're going through fertility treatments like IUI, in IVF, egg donor, adoption, whatever fertility path you're on, the mindset is probably one of the biggest hurdles. And this is where stress management needs to be taken care of. So despite all the medical problems that can be contributing to fertility, the mind is probably the number one place that I like to spend a lot of time with my patients on, because that is the place where we can optimize fertility. So hope that was very helpful. Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Dr. Bindiya Gandhi. You can follow me on Dr. Bindiya MD on Instagram, at Facebook. You can also follow me on my website. I write numerous blogs. I contribute to numerous sites, including Mind Body Green, Clean Plated Well and Good, and more at www.drbindiamd.com. And thank you very much for joining me. Shoot me questions and I'm happy to answer you. Thanks. Bye.